Roxana, thank you. 2020 presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg is defending his decision to appear on Fox News. The Democrat told moderator Chris Wallace why he thinks it's important, despite his misgivings.
There are a lot of Americans who my party can't blame if they are ignoring our message, because they will never hear it if we don't go on and talk about it. And so it's why, whether it's going into the viewership of Fox News or whether geographically it's going into places where Democrats haven't been seen much, I think we've got to find people where they are, not change our values, but update our vocabulary so that we're truly connecting with Americans from coast to coast.
All right, so let us turn to our political correspondent, Ed O'Keefe. So,
good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Happy Monday.
So the president sort of slammed Fox News for even hosting this event with Pete Buttigieg. Elizabeth Warren said that she would definitely not be doing anything with Fox News. What does this say about the Democrats' maybe move to expand their audience when you have Pete Buttigieg? Yeah, I know he's pretty low in the poll numbers, so maybe for him, you might as well, but he's still sort of a guy that's getting a lot of headlines,
yeah,
right?
In fact, in some ways, he's getting just as good numbers as Elizabeth Warren.
That's true.
There's an argument to be made that either of these strategies could work. His point there about expanding the base and maybe changing the vocabulary, but not touching what the party's values are, is an argument he's been making throughout his campaign. It's all about the packaging, how you approach and explain the issues that are important to Democrats. And so he feels that by doing this kind of an appearance, and then also making visits to either parts of the early primary states or to other states that might not normally hear from Democrats, it's a sure bet to somehow winning back those votes. Part of his MO throughout this whole thing is to just be different, to explain things differently, to go to different places, and to say yes to every interview. You know who else used to say yes to every interview? A guy named Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, okay.
And while he had universal name recognition, he understood that if you get your name out there and you talk to everyone, it could work in your favor. Buttigieg's team knows that, and that's why he decided to show up last night.
Just out of curiosity, we showed a little bit of earlier some of this town hall meeting where he got a round of applause for how he would sort of deal with the president's tweets.
Right.
In the audience, I know it's Fox News, but the audience for these things are typically quite varied, right?
Right, we think. I mean, they don't tell us exactly, but Fox has said in the past for their town halls, they try to bring in a spread of Democrats, Independents, Republicans.
Okay. So let me ask you about this. Buttigieg was asked about his take on a number of issues, including abortion. We want to play a little bit of his response.
I think the dialogue has got so caught up on where you draw the line that we've gotten away from the fundamental question of who gets to draw the line. And I trust women to draw the line when it's their own life.
Just to be clear, you're saying that you would be okay with a woman well into the third trimester deciding to abort her pregnancy.
Look, these hypotheticals are usually set up in order to provoke a strong emotional...
In fairness,
all right, so
it's not hypothetical. There's 6,000 women a year who get abortions in the third
That's right,
trimester.
Representing less than 1% of cases.
I know, but it's 6,000 pregnancies.
Let's take ourselves in...
So people have very strong opinions on abortion, but I don't think if we talked maybe 6 months ago, we would have said it might be a campaign issue. But now it's really sort of shaping up to be that, it seems like it.
Right. And while people who are opposed to abortion rights say this is their best chance now, we have to do it with Republican legislatures and a conservative majority in the court, there is some politics behind this, too. Nationally, Republicans know that if you have various states debating these bills, it's going to compel Democrats to get tied up in verbal knots like Buttigieg kind of did last night and like others have as well, to either reinforce the party's position that abortion rights should be sacrosanct and basically left alone, or others who are going to try to thread the needle in a different way and potentially get tripped up by the issue.
Right.
So while there's a fundamental reason why many people want these bills to get passed, there's a crass political reason as well to allow this to happen.
Very fascinating. All right, so got to ask you about Congressman Justin Amash. First Republican, he is a Republican, he's not a Republican, but first Republican to criticize the president, say that his behavior amounts to impeachable behavior.
Yeah.
Is this a one-off, or could we see other Republicans lining up behind him?
More likely to be a one-off.
Yeah.
He has always been an outlier. He has always been a well, I actually had another word for it, but a troublemaker, at least when it comes to Republican leadership
I could guess that other word,
party orthodoxy.
But it's too early in the morning for that kind of language.
And he's someone who has been floated as a potential future Libertarian Party presidential nominee.
Right.
He has said he's not pursuing that. Some might wonder if after this week he has to take it a little more seriously because his own party might want him out. This is somebody who used to cause great trouble for John Boehner and for Paul Ryan as a sort of inaugural member of the Tea Party caucus. Somebody who has been more than willing to speak out and go against the grain within his own party, and has never been a supporter of the president. So it's no surprise, perhaps, that he would do this. There are a handful of other Republicans who are close to him when it comes to tactics and ideology. So maybe 2 or 3 more of a similar vein would feel this way. But I think they know that the politics of their districts are different, and you couldn't necessarily go this far. So
right.
We'll see.
That totally makes sense. The president says he's officially launching his re-election campaign on Father's Day.
According to Axios, yes.
According to Axios,
we here at CBS have not confirmed that. We're working to do that. But
is that any different than what we've already been seeing? I mean, doesn't he have campaign-style events every few weeks?
Exactly. And some would argue that he actually launched his re-election campaign on Inauguration Day.
Yes, exactly.
He has raised hundreds of millions of dollars, already has a staff of hundreds based at a headquarters in Northern Virginia, is operating at a far more robust operation and size than any other what's the word? Any other sitting president in modern history. So it's no surprise. But the June 16th date is a special one in the Trump household. That is the day that he came down the escalator at Trump Tower down the street and launched his campaign. So if he wants to mark it 4 years later, it would be Father's Day this year, 2019.
Perfect timing. The president, of course, always facing, well, has been facing a host of different investigations. So now we have something else to add on to this. Employees from Deutsche Bank allege that the president and his son-in-law engaged in behavior that they felt should be investigated as money laundering. It's another accusation to pile on top of all the other ones. So I got to ask you, do you think it's going to make much of a difference?
Well, this is an interesting one. This is the Times reporting it, and they say, you know, the way it works at banks like this is employees can flag what they see as potentially suspicious transactional behavior. They flag it to higher-ups who have to determine whether or not it is or not. These kinds of all-cash transactions aren't necessarily out of the norm. What these former employees are alleging is that Deutsche Bank sometimes let this kind of stuff go. It might have been improper, but it was also the way they did business. The president this morning tweeting again about banking issues, saying it's old news, nothing to see here. It is one of the lines of inquiry that Democrats would like to pursue. The question is, how far can you really go into his past personal business practices, and what relevance does that really have to his current day job?
Yeah, and for, you know, when you're talking, there's one thing about sort of a legal investigation, and then you have to think of the political fallout, especially leading up to the election.
Especially when it would be a politically led investigation and not a legal one.
Right.
Because it would be led by Congress and not the Justice Department.
Right. Ed O'Keefe.